Times Influence Initiative.
When it comes to India's banking sector, RBL Bank is definitely making its mark. Rated as India's best bank for growth in the mid-sized bank segment, RBL Bank has been creating quite a winning streak in the financial and social spaces. With a range of attractive services for customers, RBL Bank now has reached out to over 2 million customers, thus getting recognized as a global growth company. When it comes to CSR, RBL Bank has not just supported but also initiated a number of social welfare programs. It has been at the forefront of taking up causes of sustainable development through its focus on preventive healthcare, promoting education, sustainable livelihood and women empowerment. To ensure a more sustainable future for the community, RBL Bank has thus championed Vision CSR, a unique initiative which aims to outline a vision and approach for RBL Bank through targets, interventions and projects relevant to their employees, stakeholders and the community. Leading the way for RBL Bank's Vision CSR were thought leaders, key stakeholders and experts in the field of sustainability.
So when we go as CSR to do funding, we really don't know where to put the capital at the end of it, whether we go allied or whether we go...
Today, even for agriculture, it is all crop financing. It has to become a portfolio.
Methodically moving forward, the first phase of Vision CSR saw RBL Bank's internal stakeholders and knowledge experts outline the initial phases of Vision CSR. Putting CSR and sustainable livelihoods under a microscope, a panel discussion on empowering an inclusive future was organized. The panel featured Girish Sohani, President and Managing Trustee at BAIF Development Research Foundation; Vidya Shah, Chief Executive Officer, Edelgive Foundation; Vijay Mahajan, Social Entrepreneur; R. Narottam Reddy, President and Chief Operating Officer, SBI Foundation; Uma Ganesh, CEO, Global Talent Track; Shanta Belluri, Head HR, CSR and Internal Branding, RBL Bank; and Girish Godbole, Independent Director, RBL Bank, and was moderated by Sumit Lakhotia of ET Now.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here. Mr. Mahajan, I want to start off with you. Just give me your thoughts on the macroeconomic picture, where sustainable livelihood is concerned in India. What are your thoughts on that?
The macroeconomic picture for the economy, of course, has been pretty good. We are now the world's fastest growing economy for several years, and almost anybody who's watching this program would find it counterintuitive to believe that actually, while we are having good growth, we are also accumulating a severe problem of livelihoods, because almost anyone who's watching this program belongs to the 7% lucky few who are in the formal economy. 93% of India's workforce is in the informal and agriculture sector. And about agriculture, we all know livelihoods are actually dwindling. They are very precarious. And the rest of the informal sector, while there are jobs, but they're not necessarily very, very sort of remunerative jobs. So basically, given the demographics of India, we need 1 crore new livelihoods every year.
Right.
And on top of that, there are between 15 to 20 crore people who are working but are not earning enough even to cross the poverty line.
Yes, right.
So we have a dual problem. One is the incremental and the other is the stock of people who are working but not productive enough.
Mrs. Soni, Mr. Mahajan spoke about how agricultural income is also dwindling, and in our earlier phase here, when we're talking about Vision 2020, we spoke about moving to surplus agriculture, and also about how we can develop or rather supplement income in rural areas so that farmers don't need to move to urban areas for jobs. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that subject as well.
I think the transition that is happening in agriculture is something which has to be properly studied and channelized to achieve these goals. Because within agriculture, the first 30-40 years of growth after independence and the opportunities that exist today, there is a vast difference. So on the one side, we have opportunities emerging in the high value agriculture. We are talking of fruit, we are talking of vegetables, we are talking of dairy sector, meat production. So all these opportunities are there because the entire consumption pattern of the country is also changing.
Yes.
On the other hand, if you look at the conventional agriculture, which has been staple crop oriented, that is dwindling. But because most of the production systems in agriculture are stuck in that first and have not transitioned to this second emergent subsector, that is where the mismatch is.
Right.
And if the agricultural development, agricultural growth is channelized towards these emerging subsectors, then I think there is a tremendous opportunity in agriculture to also generate sustainable livelihoods in large numbers, which is what the country needs.
Right. Mr. Godbole, one other thought is that in India, now we've got the CSR mandate by the government where companies need to contribute a certain percentage of their profit towards CSR. But just your thoughts on what the role of the financial sector could be in this?
See, as we all know, the banks especially have priority sector lending compulsions. And, most of the people think that it's a threat. They don't look at it as an opportunity. So I think there has to be a paradigm shift in the thinking of the bankers that priority sector lending can be a good opportunity for business. That is one. And if one looks at the priority sector as an opportunity for lending, then you need to build capacities of the people to get benefit of that lending. And once that happens, the financial institutions and the banks, they would have a lot of opportunity to do good and do well.
That's important. Mr. Reddy, I want to come to you with your experience at the SBI Foundation. Just your thoughts on this, what Mr. Godbole and the other panelists have brought to the front. Just your thoughts from your experience.
What I feel is, see, we cannot today ignore the rapid urbanization that is happening. So, a lot of migration from rural areas to urban areas. So, when we talk about sustainable livelihoods, we have to think in that angle. So, we cannot restrict people into rural areas only.
Yeah.
So, they are likely to move to urban areas because the dependence on agriculture also has to come down. It has been coming down. So, our sustainable livelihood initiatives should be focused on how do you empower, how do you skill these people when they move to urban areas for better employability. So, that should be also focused rather than just focusing on how you will develop them in green skills and all such.
Right.
That also should go parallelly.
Yes.
But the youth basically, they want to go to urban areas. They want to have a better lifestyle, all such. So, that type of ambitions are there today in the rural youth. So, that also we have to take into account.
Dr. Uma Ganesh, I want to get you in on this point because the idea about skilling, whether it's again the rural or the urban, and this is another thought about the need to skill the youth, because what skills the youth today require are different from what the earlier generation required. Your experience at your company, how's that been with the digital skills impartation?
You're absolutely right. Actually, digital literacy is going to be a must-have capability everybody should have, whether it is youth or women or children. In our training centers, when we approach digital literacy, we not only look at giving them initial orientation, but it is very important for them to also appreciate how on the strength of digital literacy, the digital platform, they can have orientation towards online banking, maybe e-commerce opportunities, because in tomorrow's world it is not only going and working elsewhere and finding jobs with the companies, but it is about self-employment, which is going to be a significant advantage for the youth. On the strength of such competencies, they are able to therefore think about small enterprises, whether it is to do with weavers, whether it is to do with ecotourism, whether it is to do with a home chef, yes, or nursing assistants. How do they let the world know that they have these capabilities? That is where I think the world is going towards.
Okay. Shanta, I just want to bring you in here with the CSR objective at RBL Bank also. I mean, if you could tell me, why do you believe that sustainable livelihood is a key focus area?
For us, like Mr. Godbole just mentioned, see, we do priority sector lending. It's part of our strategy of the bank. it just perfectly synergizes to do sustainable livelihood. Why sustainable livelihood? One of the things is we really need to look at non-migrating the population.
Yes.
You know, just to stay with a different thought from what he mentioned, Mr. Reddy, some time back, we want to stay with the population being right there. Creating self-employment, creating income-generating allied opportunities for them. And therefore, this piece on digital literacy, how do we enhance their allied income-generating opportunities? I think that's where our focus is, and therefore, we want to put all our resources towards sustainable livelihood, because it meets with our overall strategy of banking as well.
Right. Ms. Shah, I want to bring you in with the Edel Give Foundation. Your sense on the sustainable livelihood piece there.
So in the livelihoods work actually has 2 or 3 pieces that we work around. This financial inclusion, because we come from Edelweiss, which is in financial services. And like Mr. Godbole was also saying, I think the credit piece and the financial literacy piece is very, very important in the rural economy if you really want to boost both agricultural livelihoods as well as small entrepreneurial opportunities. The availability of credit to small farmers, small entrepreneurs is very, very important. The other work that we do in sustainable livelihoods is around soil and water conservation, and really working with communities to help build the right water structures that are most suited to that community. So I think, the rural economy actually needs multiple approaches.
Yes.
As people who are in CSR, we need to work on all planks.
Yeah, of course, it's juggling quite a few balls and ensuring that everything works properly. Mr. Mahajan, we were talking earlier about, when we came up in the first phase and we've kind of streamlined some focus for Vision 2020. What are your thoughts in the green skills?
So I'd like to link this with what Shanta and Girish Sohani said. Now, that's not just an issue of capital investment that is required, and banks and financial institutions can bring that. But you also need new skills, new knowledge, and then new value-added processes and new markets. So that whole thing generates a large number of new skill-based opportunities. For example, say if you want to do something and say if you want to grow vegetable in dryland areas, you need to do it conserving water. So simple thing like installation of micro drip irrigation kits. So ecotourism, homestays. Now all these are skills which are not natural to rural people. They'll have to be trained. So this set of skills is what I've been calling green skills.
Right, okay, the importance for them. In the digital skills part, Mr. Sawhney, just wanted your thoughts, because there is one thing that innovation is also really important, and homegrown innovations need to also be fostered, grown, identified and spread out.
Very true. I think when we are talking of the rural user, we cannot look, suppose we are talking of digital technology and its application, we cannot think of it from the supply side. We have to think of it from the context side, from the potential demand side. And what it means is that we have to look on digital technologies as a tool, and the tool has to be applied to advance the core business of that client population. So we have the agriculturist, we have the farmer, we have the dairy farmer, or the allied occupations. What is it that digital technology can contribute to enhance their effectiveness, enhance their activity, enhance their economy? If that is at the core, otherwise it becomes a dished out program of tools and techniques that are available in digital. So that developing solutions for the context is what is going to be very important. And I think this is an important thing applicable to all service sector inputs for development, even banking. Basically, the finance sector institutions which are contributing to the development. It is what can we contribute to enhance the business in terms of financial services, and the financial services will have to be understood beyond loan provision. It has to be making the business more viable, more vibrant. And so a lot of business development services may also have to be brought under the scope of what is financial inclusion.
Mr. Mahajan, I just wanted to bring you in one thought that I had is, what is some things that corporates need to keep in mind when they go out to do CSR?
I mean, any corporate leader knows that running a business is complex.
Yes.
But interestingly, the same corporate leaders, when it comes to doing development work, you know, they make the assumption that, well, okay, you know, what's the big deal? I mean, there's some poor people and we have to help them. By and large, I've seen that the nouveau CSR folks still have a view that this is one more corporate project and we'll do it. You know, we can hire an NGO to do the do the sort of the ground piece of the work, but the strategic thinking is still corporate. That needs to be corrected.
That's a valid point. Ms. Shah, you're running the foundation at Edelweiss, so Edelgive Foundation. How important do you think it is for corporates to set up a foundation? I mean, to do it through the foundation rather than the corporate doing it. Do you see a difference? Do you see some benefits there?
So I think the vehicle is something that's, you know, that the decision around the vehicle should be really left to the corporate. But I think it's the thinking behind how either a foundation will operate or how you would like to use the existing CSR resources in an organization. So we set up the foundation almost 10 years ago. But the thinking was that we wanted our philanthropy actually to be strategic. And like Vijay was saying, I think the usual approach of corporates is to, and it's very important, it builds your brand. But I think we also need a balance with figuring out what communities need. How do we bridge that gap rather than just saying, if I do this, it will make me look good.
I'd just like to add on to what she said. So we work directly, we don't have a foundation. But the way we operate is that we adopt villages. We have 4 pillars. We have education, we have women empowerment, sustainable livelihood, and healthcare, preventive healthcare. So what we've done is we've intermingled our corporate strategy into our CSR project because we don't have a foundation. Then, you know, we also have tie-up with a company called Next Gen.
Right.
And they actually identify the grassroots NGOs for us, and they also help us in employee volunteering. So we've been using multiple models so that it becomes a way of life.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being on this panel. It's been highly enlightening, but before I let you go, I would just, Mr. Godbole, if you could start and then we'll move down the line. Just your last closing thoughts, closing comments.
See, here when we are talking about CSR and how do corporates look at it, I am reminded of a very old saying by Sir Jamshedji Tata. He said, the board of directors of a company are not only trustees for the benefits of the shareholders, the employees, the government and the corporate, but also the community where it operates. So I think if you have that kind of a vision, all other things will fall through.
Ma'am, your thoughts.
I would think that CSR in the coming days, more and more companies are going to be looking at outcome, and if this outcome has to be measured, it has to be planned properly. The implementation process has to be much more granular than it has been in the past. Monitoring mechanisms will become more and more important, not just for the purpose of reporting, but also in terms of being able to figure out how the transformational process has been, and therefore learn from that process to make it even better. So these 3 or 4 areas will become more important from the perspective of making sure that the CSR funds are well invested.
Very true. Mr. Reddy, your closing thoughts.
Yeah. Like Mr. Godbole was putting, it should be, CSR should be looked at more than just brand building or something which you are mandated to do, so you are doing it. It should be your strategy, your vision, and it can also help your furtherance of your business. There is nothing wrong in it. But what you are trying to do is, you may be integrating it with your business, which is directly benefiting, should not be looked at. So you should be focusing on what is that you are making a difference to the community around you, where you are operating, what is the value addition you have done as a good corporate citizen.
Shanta, your thoughts.
For us, sustainable livelihood is a way of life, and we made that our strategic mission. In fact, in our mission, we introduced community as a cause, and even in our goal sheets for employees, we have this as part of their goal sheet delivery. So for us, it has to happen. There's no two ways about it, because employee volunteering is something that we invest heavily as an organization. We also have tie-ups with Digital Solution, which is a mobile app where we can track our employees. So for us, sustainable livelihood is the strategy for Vision 2020, which will be a combination of green skills as well as digital. It also intermingles beautifully into our strategy.
Mr. Mahajan, your closing comments.
The task of sustainable livelihoods is so large that no single organization, even some as large as the SBI itself, forget just the SBI Foundation, is not enough for the task. So we need to collaborate. So 3 levels of collaboration. One is between various CSR efforts. Second is between CSR efforts and community organizations and NGOs working close to the ground. And third and most important is all these collaborating with government, because the overarching livelihood promotion entity in the country is government. And they sometimes do 95% of the work, but the 5% which requires flexibility and some out of the box approach for various public accountability reasons, they're not able to do. That's where the CSR funding and the NGO human resources come in. It really unleashes a lot of very positive effects.
Okay, very, very valid point, sir. Ms. Shah, your closing comments.
So I think the corporates and the private sector, just the mere creation of jobs itself is a big contribution actually to the economy and to livelihoods. But I think because of the CSR law, we now have anywhere between $1.5 and $2 billion that is now available for what should be development-oriented work. And this number is only going to grow. So if the money can be used more strategically, and if, like the RBL Vision 2020 exercise, if it is made not only to align to the brand, but also to align to what makes sense as a responsible citizen of corporate India, I think then that balance will really enable this $2 billion to really be used where it needs to go.
Very true, very important. Mr. Soni, your final comments.
I think when you are working in a small geography or maybe a cluster or a few villages, it is good to have a holistic approach, because poverty, development, all these are very having factors which are very interlocked, and unless you tackle different interlocked factors, you cannot create a sustainable impact. So it will have to touch health, it will have to touch education, it will have to touch skill building along with income generation, and that is what together will create sustainable livelihoods. When corporates don't have to focus on a geography, then you also have the opportunity of identifying the key triggers in particular sectors or priority areas which can unlock the potential of development in those sectors. So I think that is where also channelizing can contribute a lot, because after all, development has to happen and be taken forward by the local genius. And helping that to happen can be by triggering off, by using identifying some keys which will unlock that potential.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This intense discussion gave way to more avenues under the purview of sustainable livelihood, thus laying the foundation for Vision CSR, combining the brand with nation-building activities. Under the flagship program, Financial Empowerment Through Entrepreneurship and Skills, with the focus on young female and male beneficiaries from rural and urban areas, the spotlight would be on sustainable agriculture, from subsistence to surplus, green skills, and digital skills for financial inclusion, thus paving the way forward for a more sustainable future.
A Times Influence Initiative.